When you talk about production cost in the petrochemical industry and energy cycle realities, what we're referring to is the fact that the vast majority of the cost of manufacturing petrochemicals is heavily dependent upon energy markets because of the feedstocks that are used in the manufacturing of petrochemicals are derived from core energy markets. Specifically, we're talking about naphtha feedstocks that are really driven by oil markets, or natural gas liquids feedstocks that come from the production of natural gas or associated gas from crude oil. So when you look at the fact that the feedstocks are tied directly to these core energy markets of oil and gas, as those two markets have cycled over time, it also creates a challenge, therefore, for the petrochemical industry of either predicting what those cycles might be, and therefore how their cost might change over time, which then shifts their competitiveness in the industry with the energy market cycles. The most recent example of a tremendous impact that the energy market cycle had on the industry was during this last 5 or 6 years. If you think about the run-up of crude oil to $100 per barrel during the 2012, 2013, 2014 time period, petrochemicals being manufactured from naphtha feedstocks became very non-competitive. Areas of the world such as West Europe, Latin America, Northeast Asia had very non-competitive assets, and in some cases were contemplating closures because they couldn't compete with other assets around the world that were pretty much gas-based or natural gas liquids-based. But as oil prices collapsed from $100 a barrel in 2014 to $30 to $40 a barrel in the early 2015, that regional competitive shifted. Those naphtha assets overnight became very competitive and also very profitable, and were able to compete pretty much on an even playing field with gas-based assets around the world. As a chemical manufacturer, as I'm looking to build the next plant or retrofit my existing plants, obviously, as we've been discussing here, the technologies that leverage either light feedstocks or heavy feedstocks come into play in terms of my decision making. I also have to consider other factors, though, factors such as market access, domestic or export, and also my vertical integration position. How far downstream do I go in my business, and am I integrated upstream in my business? So for example, if I'm a company that is primarily dependent upon ethylene derivatives, then I may choose ethane feedstock derived from natural gas as my primary feedstock and therefore my technology. If my business is heavily dependent upon other hydrocarbons, ethylene, propylene, butadiene, aromatic products in terms of my downstream businesses, then I may choose naphtha as my feedstock because that produces a full slate of high-value hydrocarbons. So for the investment planning team to assess whether to pursue heavy feedstocks or light feedstocks, looking at both current and historical trends in the energy cycles, really requires looking at different scenarios and how each of these technologies will perform through these different scenarios over time. Each company has to make their own assessment based on their position in the market, their degree of integration, their feedstock mix, their assessment of the future. Where we can help them in this regard is providing our own views of where energy market cycles will go in the future, as well as the supply-demand analysis around each one of these petrochemical markets. Now, one of the benefits and recent tools that we've developed to help our clients is it gives something that gives them the ability to visualize the performance of different technologies through these cycles over time. So we have a product called the Process Comparison and Cost Tracker. It actually looks at specific technologies to manufacture, for example, ethylene and propylene in a given country utilizing a given feedstock under a given energy scenario, where you can track production cost, investment cost, plant cost over time and assess how these different technologies have performed. That then allows these planning teams to, again, make their own projections or use the IHS projections to apply those analysis and therefore make their own decisions based on, again, their views, their degree of integration, their time frame for making their investment, and more importantly, the risk that they're willing to take in their business.